Today, 3 parts of the special grand jury's report were released on a judge's orders. It confirmed that a majority of the grand jury believes that perjury may have been committed by one or more witnesses testifying before it. The grand jury recommends that the district attorney seek appropriate indictments for such crimes where the evidence is compelling. Translation: at least one of the witnesses who appeared before that grand jury appears to have lied and could end up in jail. Today, reporters caught up with Senator Lindsey Graham, who said he was confident he hadn't perjured himself before rushing out of the room to avoid answering more questions.
Yes, I'm very confident. I have no idea what they're going to do. I'll just leave that to them.
So you're confident you're not one of the ones who perjured themselves?
I'm confident.
The newly released portions of the report also note that the grand jury found by unanimous vote that no widespread fraud took place in the Georgia 2020 presidential election that could result in overturning that election. So you can add that to the pile of official groups in Georgia that have found Trump's claims of widespread voter fraud to be patently false. Former President Trump, for his part, used the release of this report to prematurely declare victory. On his social media platform, Truth Social, Trump claimed the report amounted to, quote, total exoneration, noting that the sections of the report released today do not mention his name once. They really actually don't mention many names at all. Of course, one potential reason Trump's name does not appear in the sections of the report released today could be because he is still the subject of the criminal investigation, one where the DA may soon have to decide whether or not to charge him with a crime. With the special grand jury's work now finished, that decision about whether or not to bring criminal charges against the former president, that decision could come any day now. Joining us now is Michael Moore, former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia. Mr. Moore, thanks for being here. I just want to start with the breadcrumbs that we are following today upon the release of, admittedly, a short section of this report. The phrase one or more witnesses in the sentence may have committed perjury. Is that meaningful to you?
Well, I'm glad to be with you tonight. I'll tell you, I don't know that anybody who appeared before the grand jury ought to be taking great comfort in anything that was said. And they probably should be calling their lawyers, and if they're not, they've wasted an afternoon to get somebody to represent them. We're in unusual waters here, and it's really an uncharted territory because you don't see these reports in Georgia. I mean, we don't use special purpose grand juries very often. We typically just have a criminal grand jury. And so there's really no playbook, no go-by for this type of report. And here, the special purpose grand jury sent some things out. The judge redacted most of the report. And I think he did that sort of balance in the interest of making sure the public had access to some information, at the same time protecting the DA's investigation and protecting the due process rights of potential defendants in the case. And so we're seeing something that's not a normal occurrence in the Superior Courts of Fulton County. It is unusual to have a grand jury say that they didn't believe some of the witnesses. That may happen at times with a prosecutor in the confines of the grand jury room, but not necessarily in a public filing like this or in a public report that gets put out. My guess is at the end of the day, you're going to find that those people who challenged the subpoenas, who filed sort of frivolous claims of privilege and other things to keep from having to testify before the grand jury and then ultimately did, that you'll find some correlation likely between those names and the people that the grand jury thought were being less than forthcoming and less than candid with them in Fulton County. Yeah,
one of those names that appears in bright lights is that of Senator Lindsey Graham, we already know that there is a disagreement between two people, including him, involved in a sort of central part of the scheme. The Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, says that Senator Graham asked him to reject votes. Senator Graham says he did not. Assuming they both said the same thing to the grand jury, that means that one of them is lying. Am I doing the math wrong here? No,
you're doing it right. And the problem for Senator Graham is that Secretary Raffensperger made no real secret about it when it happened. As he went on in public and made some public comments about how he felt about the call and what he thought the purpose of the call was. And so those sort of contemporaneous statements at the time are going to come back to bite Senator Graham if, in fact, he's one of the people that the grand jury was talking about. But remember, This is just a report. It's almost like a recommendation to the DA that she can take or leave, or she can take parts of it. She can reject the whole thing and put it in the file drawer and never look at it and do what she wants to do. This does not mean that she will move forward with perjury charges. It just means that there's a grand jury here and some members of the grand jury who felt like they weren't getting the full story. So, time will tell if she wants to bring a perjury charge. And my guess is she's going to have her plate full with other likely defendants in the case, and she may decide that's enough at this time. But we'll see. I mean, this report, you can't have beef stew without carrots and potatoes and beef. Well, we kind of got the carrots and potatoes here, but we're still waiting on the beef to see what at the end of the day is going to shake out in this investigation.
I'm going to assume that's a Brunswick stew metaphor, to just use some Georgia parlance.
Right. That's just a good beef stew. So you got to have the carrots and the potatoes, but we're waiting on the beef.
Just real quick, Trump, the president, former president, saying he is fully exonerated by this report, which, as you point out, is, it's not a charging document. It is basically Georgia's version of the January 6th committee, right? Like they have a lot of information. They're issuing their recommendations. It's up to the DA to decide what to do with it. Do you think that the president is on any solid ground here in claiming exoneration?
No, I mean he's putting more spin on that than a basketball player with a ball. I mean, there's no comfort he can take in this report. In the silliness of it, of his statement, is that the judge said specifically, "I'm taking the names out. I'm taking the recommendations out for who the grand jury said should be indicted." So to say now, well, my name is out, it just is sort of laughable at this point. And it's not surprising that he wasn't called to testify before the grand jury. Typically, a prosecutor won't do that. If they've got a target, a subject of an investigation, you don't bring them in to put on a circus in front of the grand jury, claiming the fifth time and time again and over and over. And so I'm not really surprised at all. And this is just classic Trumpian spin that is meaningless, and it may provide some fodder for other channels and some supporter somewhere. But it's a completely meaningless statement that he put out.
My name is not in a report with no names.
Right.
That is effectively the logic.
My name's not in it either, so I guess that means I'm okay too. I mean, the whole thing's kind of silly.
Mine is also not in there, so I am exonerated as well. Right. Michael Moore, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Great pleasure to be with you. Thank you.